In today's video, we're going to cover some of the most frequently asked questions that the customer experience team receives. Today in particular, we're going to be talking about the Domino 500. Now, the first question that comes a lot is, which Domino should I get? Do I get the DF 500 or do I get the DF 700? They have a lot of the same features, such as connector sets, such as accessories. But you can see by looking at these two machines right here that one is substantially larger than the other. So while this machine theoretically can do everything that this machine can do, I would say that for 99% of woodworkers, the Domino 500 is going to be perfect for all of the applications that you would need it for. Bigger does not always mean better. This, I feel, is better suited for people that are doing very large projects, say something like waterfall edged river tables or very large pieces of furniture that uses 8-quarter lumber, maybe somebody that's building a lot of doors. That's where I really think this is going to shine, as where this is going to be more suited for basic things that most people are going to make on a daily basis. One thing to think about is, if this is going to get by with the majority of things that you need to do, one of the things that you should take into consideration is actually size and weight of the machine, because that is going to affect the user experience. And if you were to take both of these side by side and use each one of the machines, you will notice a substantial difference between the use of the 500 versus the 700. So that should be an important consideration in deciding what it is that you truly need for your projects. I personally own both of these machines, and I would say that 99.5% of the time, everything I need to do is covered by the Domino 500. The next thing I want to cover and demonstrate is dealing with the proper alignment and plunging of the Domino. This is something that I think a lot of people struggle with when they first get the machine for various reasons. While the machine is incredibly accurate, when you first get it, it can have a little bit of a learning curve into utilizing it and using the proper technique to get the best results possible. The worst thing would be to spend that kind of money on one of these tools and then not have the confidence in it. So what I'll do is I'll share just a couple very basic pointers that will help you get better results every time. The first thing that I want to point out is that there is an indicator line right here in this clear plastic. There is also one on the bottom of the machine. This is your reference line. So let's say that you were to mark a line on a board. This is the line that you are going to line that up with and make sure that it is dead center. Now, one tip that I do like to recommend to people is, because this is such a thin line, the thinner the pencil line you can make, the easier it is for you to make sure that you're dead center on that line. Now, once we've made the pencil line on the material we're trying to plunge into, what we want to do is make sure that we get this nice and tight up against the edge of the material, and we're placing downward pressure on this handle to ensure that it is perfectly level. From there, and I think this is where most people have the biggest issue, is they decide to hold it very high up on the machine and they don't push directly straight forward. It's almost like they're pushing and lifting up, and that can cause problems. So what we want to do is we want to take our hand, place it on the back of the machine around where the power cord is and the end of the machine, and we're just applying slow, smooth pressure directly into the workpiece. So what we don't want to do is, since we have our weight on the material and we have it perfectly level, we don't want to be applying downward pressure to the machine, because anytime we're going to get any sort of angle like this, it's going to affect the final result once we join our two boards together. And then finally, I did talk about going slow and smooth and not jerking the machine into the material. What that can cause, if not careful, is for the machine to jump, and it's also going to affect the alignment once you go to put the boards together. So one good way to think about it, again, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. You're going to get much better results by simply going slowly into the workpiece and retracting the plunger. The next thing I want to address is something that can actually cause a lot of damage to your machines, and a lot of people make this mistake, and that is changing the width of the mortise. Now, while I can change the setting with the machine off, it is highly recommended that you absolutely don't do that. You want to make sure that you are changing and adjusting that while the machine is turned on. That is how the machine was designed. So avoid any unnecessary wear and tear on your Domino by, if you need to change the width, then make sure the machine is on. And then once you have changed the width, then turn the machine off. Next is an accessory that you don't see used very often. I think it's because a lot of people don't actually know what the value and benefit of them are, and that is the cross stops. Now, these are compatible with both the DF500 and the DF700. It's the exact same accessory regardless of which one you buy. The settings on the cross stops themselves are just slightly different, and you need to flip one over depending on which one you're working with. Right here we have the DF500 as our indicator, and that's what it is for. Now, most people already know that we actually have stops built into the Domino, both the DF500 and the DF700. The DF700 has multiple, these have one. These currently are spaced 37 millimeters from the center of the cutter head. So you can utilize these stops depending on what it is that you're doing. But that's great if you want to reference off the edge of a particular board, let's say for cabinetry. Well, what if I wanted to evenly space dominoes, we'll just say 150 millimeters apart? That's where these come into play. Now, these simply attach to the domino through these small little dovetail channels right here. This just drops directly on to the cross stop. It locks down in place, and then I'm able to set this adjustment to be able to give myself repeatability. And this pin right here is actually what's going to reference the previous mortise that we made utilizing the domino. So once I make my first plunge, if I wanted to hook into that first plunge and make sure that I'm perfectly spaced in this scenario, 150 millimeters away, I would continue to just use this reference pin all the way down, giving me perfectly spaced dominoes. And why that's important is because you can replicate that on an additional piece, therefore making sure everything lines up perfectly. And the final two topics that I want to cover are some very frequently asked questions, and that deals with domino connectors in conjunction with dominoes. So in terms of domino connectors, the question is, how many should you use? And then the next question is, and should I be using regular dominoes with the connectors? Now, the domino connectors are available for both the DF500 and the DF700. Obviously, the DF700 is going to have much larger connectors. This right here is the set for the DF500. But to identify exactly how many you need is really going to be dependent on the project. Let me give you a small example. Let's say that you were building a cabinet and you had a top stretcher that was roughly 4 inches in width. At a minimum, it would be recommended to use one connector and one domino. Now, the domino is not just used for alignment aid, but it is also used for stability. It is going to make that joint stronger. So you wouldn't want to just use the connector and not have anything else there to help support that piece. Now, if we got into a slightly wider piece, it would be much more suitable if we had one connector and 2 dominoes to help really strengthen up that joint. So there is no real hard, fast rule, but yes, you should be using dominoes in conjunction with the connectors, but it's not just for the alignment, it is to strengthen up that joint. Let the scale of your project dictate how many connectors and or dominoes you think you need for that application. All right, so that covers some of the most frequently asked questions about the Domino DF500 that the customer experience team receives on a daily basis. Hopefully you found this information helpful, and we'll see you in the next video.